I wasn't ready to leave the show. Definitely wasn't ready to leave the show. And I knew because I saw the podcast numbers that we were going to have a lot of suitors. So but you have to realize, Brandon, because you have stumbled upon an interesting thing here. You're exchanging relevancy for money, essentially, and freedom is what you're doing. I miss that relevancy. I miss the relevancy of being on ESPN. And anyone who says otherwise is lying. They're lying through their teeth. Okay. I look at Pat McAfee on in every single airport TV in America, and I get insanely jealous. I do. I'm happy for Pat. Pat's doing it his way. People should stop giving him a hard time. He gets all the big guests on. And so what if he doesn't ask the questions you want him to ask? Go get your own show and get the guest and ask them the questions you want to ask. Like, who are you to determine what journalism is in 2024? Journalism is what you want it to be. And if McAfee doesn't want to ask Belichick a tough question, who gives a shit? I applaud Pat McAfee. And I'm also insanely jealous of him. I want to be on every television in every airport in America, and I miss that.
Did ESPN, obviously the Chris Cody thing was a big sticking point, but did ESPN do a good job of giving the Dan Le Batard show with Stugotz the freedom that you guys wanted?
I thought ESPN was great. Like, to their credit, we walked in there. They knew what kind of show they were getting. They left us alone for the most part. They really let us do our thing. Our thing was different than anything they had ever had. And so, yeah, they were great. They were great partners. They were fine. I mean, I didn't have to deal with some of the stuff that maybe Mike Ryan had to deal with on an executive level. I'm just telling you, my experience there was one that was great. I felt supported. The show felt supported. They were really good partners to us. And those platforms, man, they're massive. They really are. Like, they're massive. I still get recognized today all the time. And it's, you know, when I start to get now, when I walk through airports, is, hey, there's Stugotz from ESPN. I used to get that. Now I get, hey, there's Stugotz. What are you doing now? And so, yeah, it's like, listen, my dad can't find us on YouTube. When I told my dad, he's like, why'd you leave ESPN? I said, we're going to YouTube. We're going to DraftKings. He goes, do I have YouTube? I'm like, Dad, we all have YouTube. What are you talking about? They can't find us. Like, there is something to popping up on a television every single day.
Yeah.
And being on a massive radio network with those 4 letters behind you. That was great. That made you feel like a big star. I miss some of that, but I also understand we're fortunate to be one of the shows that is able to sustain itself and really create jobs for other people and create a future and jobs for the people who have worked really hard for us. And that excites me, and I'm grateful for that.
Would it have been nice to have the Pat McAfee level of freedom, just from the standpoint of, like, maybe you had freedom of the content and the show that you were creating, but just not necessarily having to answer to bosses at ESPN?
Yeah, that would have been great. I mean, who wouldn't want what McAfee has? He's borrowing their platforms to grow his audience. They're borrowing him and his show and all those guests to help build audience on those platforms and to help generate sales. Yeah, I think at least from my standpoint, that's something Pat's doing it. We were employees of ESPN. I don't think people realize that, Brandon. Pat's not an employee of ESPN.
Right.
They are. They're partners. They're borrowing his show, and they know very well that Pat could leave at any moment and be fine on his own. They know that. We knew that when we were at ESPN that we could do that. There's only a handful of shows that could do that. We're one of them. I think the way McAfee has structured his deal is really, really smart. He's getting all the ESPN stuff. He's getting all the platforms. He's getting all the audience. He's getting all the guests. ESPN is getting a great program, but that's the way you do it, where you're partners and you're not an employee of ESPN. And I think you'll see more of that moving forward, where ESPN will and the other sports media outlets, you'll see a bunch of partnerships moving forward. We were slightly behind that. Pat nailed it. And I wish that's the way we would have structured our deal, but we didn't because we couldn't at the time. We were a local show that was hired by ESPN. We had no business being at ESPN. And yet they still hired us anyway. But that's the way to do it moving forward. Like, you don't have to work for anyone. Create a big, massive audience and a big, gigantic show and see if someone like ESPN wants to partner with you. Like Pat McAfee, well done, my friend.